Welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast. BrightWord is a leading platform for diverse storytelling, where voices from all backgrounds can share their unique narratives and connect with readers from around the world. Follow our regular podcast updates, where we strive to foster a literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature.
Hello, welcome to the BrightWord Books Podcast, where we delve into the heart of compelling stories. I'm Nancy Gregory. In this episode, we're exploring The Thundering Smoke, The Price of Freedom by Guy Quigley. Follow the journey of Tom Sutton, a man grappling with loss and seeking redemption during the Irish Liberation War, and his new life in Africa. Together, we'll uncover the novel's themes, characters, and vivid landscapes that make it a standout read. Let's begin. Hello, Guy. Great for you to be able to join us.
Hello, Nancy. Pleasure to be here, really.
Before we dive into the book, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, gosh. I'm getting on in the years now, so that I could take the entire podcast to tell you the whole story. But I was basically born from a theatrical family originally in Ireland. My dad was a concert violinist. My mother was an actress. My grandfather conducted the Edinburgh Symphony Orchestra and was offered, listen to this one, the honorary role of conducting the band on the Titanic.
Wow.
Turned it
Seriously?
Down. Very seriously. Very serious indeed. So anyway, the point is the last thing the world needed was another like lousy broke actor, which is usually the name of the game. So I used my stage knowledge to go into marketing, because marketing to me was an acting game, really,
Right.
How you act your part way through to the bitter end. And I was really successful at that. And I ended up living in London. I had a couple of companies there that I'd operated with. And then back in 1976, I believe it was, right? I went with a friend of mine on vacation to Mallorca, and we were on vacation, and in comes this charming little lady, and I'd no interest or desire of marrying or settling down with anybody ever, because I was having a wonderful time. I mean, my life in London was an incredible life. I mean, one of my neighbors was a member of the Kinks, the pop group.
Yes.
He used to come up and down. We hung out all the time. Anyway, the point of it is that was my lifestyle. But now I meet this girl, and I said, "Well, where do you come from?" I said, "You've got a weird accent." She said, "You got a weird accent." I said, "That's I'm Irish. What are you?" She said, "I'm Zambian." I said, "Wow, I got to figure out where the hell is Zambia? Geographically on the map."
Yes.
And I said, "Give me another title for it." She says, "Northern Rhodesia." Oh, now I know what you're talking about, because now you're getting to my age group here. So I said, basically, cut to the chase. She said to me that she got measles or something in England, and her parents took her to Mallorca to get into the sun or whatever. And I thought, my gosh, may I be bold and ask you, how old are you? She said, "I'm 20 years old." I said, "Really? Okay, stay away."
Mhm.
Anyway, to cut to the chase, I could never get to talk to this woman on her own. So I used to watch when the father would come down to pay bills, because he was born in South Africa, but he was an American. This is a weird, complicated procedure here, but he kind of figured out that the continental breakfast meant have what you want, and he was arguing with the guys at the bottom because he'd ordered a pile of stuff, and that he doesn't know it's a croissant and a cup of coffee. That's continental breakfast. So I finally got her on her own for 5 minutes and did a quick introduction. Asked her, would she like to go out one evening just for a cocktail or whatever else? I think she's 20, but still, I did ask that question. And she said, "No, I'm pretty busy." I said, "All righty. How about Friday night? Are you busy?" She says, "Yeah." "Saturday night, are you busy?" "Yeah." I said, "Well, okay. Maybe you go to church on Sunday. I'll take you there." She said, No. She said, "That's fine." Anyway, the point is, we did arrange for a meeting. I took her out to dinner. Unfortunately, she got drunk because I had some Dom Perignon, and I remember having to turn the bottle upside down, which is against my better judgment, but I did. And then I took her home left her with her parents. And the following day, I was on the beach, and she came down and ignored me like she never met me before. And I tried to figure out, well, what happened here? I was a
Wow.
nice guy, It wasn't that. She was just a shy person. And the bottom line was, to cut to the chase, it took me 5 days, literally 5 days, to tell her, I'd love to marry you. She said, are you crazy? You mad person? I said, no, I just know when the time's right, the time's right. So my time is right now. Well, she said, you're going to have to ask my parents. I said, not a problem. So I went and I spoke to the parents. The mother laughed me out of the room, of course. And the father gave me a lot of scotch, which I don't drink. But anyway, the point is, uh, I got their permission and hers. And she actually said, well, I've got to go home to Africa because I got a couple of boyfriends there that need to know what I'm doing. I said, well, okay. And I said, well, tell you what, you go back to Africa, but before you go, I'd like you, when we go back to London, I'd like you to come over with me to Dublin, meet my parents, because I'm sure they'd like to meet you. And, being of Irish origin, when I called up to tell them I was going to get married, I said, where does this girl come from? She comes from Zambia in Africa. My sister said, oh my God, I'll stand by you. I said, what are you talking about? You'll stand by me. And I said, oh, I got you. You
Mhm.
think you're marrying a black African woman. That's what you think. I said, she's a British colonial white person. And my mother said, but she's very dark. she's tanned. So
Mhm.
anyway, we went back to London. I went back to work. She went back to Africa. 6 months later, I flew out to Africa on my own, 12-hour flight, met her, married her, and
Wow.
that was 54 years ago.
54 years ago. So
But it happens that
you were
it,
met and she wasn't interested, but you convinced her, and
yeah,
it's been 54 years.
yeah. And there's a myriad of stories on the way leading up to that I could tell you, but I mean it'll take up all your time.
Right.
But the ironic part about it was my friends at the airport with me, and that was the days when you didn't have to, well, you could bring your people to the gate and have a cocktail with them before you boarded the plane. Maybe you don't remember that, but that's how it used to be before all the security stuff. So my friends are with me at the gate, and they said, and one of them was the King's Pete, and he says, "What are you mad?" He said, "You're flying out to Africa where you don't know anybody, and you're going to go and marry a woman you barely know." I said, my head tells me this is right. So I get on the plane, we do the flights, 12-hour flight, and the thing's coming into land. And I'm hearing these gunfire and cannons and stuff going off. And I said, oh, they were right. You're going to a country where there's a coup going on, and you're arriving right in the middle of it. And
Wow.
I said, I'm not getting off the plane. So I looked at the crew. They were all like Brits. I said, where are you guys going? He said, we're going to the local hotel, Intercontinental, whatever it is. And I said, I tell you what, can I get off with you? He said, no, the rest of the passengers are gone. You can get off. I said, no. I don't like all the gunfire that's going on here. It troubles me. And they said, don't worry about that. That's just a salute for President Nyerere from Tanzania, who's visiting Zambia. So that's what they do. They have a rah, rah, rah. And of
Mhm.
course, at the same time, she's with her father. And he said, I told you he wouldn't come. I knew he wouldn't come because nobody got the last guy off the plane. So anyway, so that's how it all happened. It was weird.
And tell me about your love for writing. When did that begin?
It, it began a long time ago, actually, because it probably didn't hit me until I had lots of time on my hand. Africa is a little different sphere than London because you're in a different environment. And I thought, so what the hell do I do with myself here? So I said, you've been in the business for a long time. Why don't you write something? So the first book I wrote was called The Little People, which was for my children. It was a kid's book.
Mhm.
And that's out there floating around somewhere. And then I decided that, I think I'd like to tackle something different now. And I embarked on this one. And when I got through it, I got to the point where I couldn't put it down. I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And I thought, in the end, this is like War and Peace. Nobody's going to ever look at this thing. And that was the truth. That was like 50 years ago.
How many pages was it?
800 originally.
My goodness.
So, and I tried to get it published in England when I went back to England at the late 70s, and nobody would look at it. They said, no, this is too long. You'll never hold the audience for that amount of time. I said, well, okay. So my thoughts there were, think about movies. Think about how you would do the 3-act play, but make it 3 books.
So it's a trilogy.
It's a trilogy, yeah.
Awesome. Well, the novel begins against the backdrop of the Irish Liberation War. How does this turbulent historical setting shape Tom Sutton's mindset and actions at the start of the story?
Well, like most people in his age group, in the early 20s, perhaps, whatever, he wanted to be involved in the Irish Liberation War. What a lot of people don't know historically, that Ireland was the very first country that Britain took over. And that was 700 years of rule. That's a long time when you own a country where the people are not that happy with your situation, but the Brits wouldn't give it up. So 700 years. And it took to the 1922 for the Irish to wake up and say, we need to be independent here. And that's where it all started, around the 1990s, the First World War. And they went forward to make their own empire. I mean, I try to, obviously I can't write historical facts about people because I don't know enough of them, but I know I can weave an historical fiction per person into the facts. And that's what I did. I mean, for example, in that first book, there's a lot of reference to some of the people of the day, Prime Minister Gladstone of England, the Sinn Féin organization, the Michael Collins, Eamon de Valera, an American who became the first president of Ireland. So in 1922, when the Britons rethought their situation, because it was getting a bloody war, and they decided that they'll give up 26 counties of Ireland. There's 32 in all, but they'll give up 26 counties and they'll let them be independent, and they'll hold on to a little niche at the top called Ulster. And the reason for that holding on that Ulster is the people in Ulster, it's a religious war. I mean, you got Catholics in the south, Protestants in the north, and they don't like each other. It's as simple as that. And the Protestants in Ulster did not want to go with a free state of Ireland, which was Catholic, so they stuck with it. So it's very easy to weave my guy into all of that and make him a wanted guy who's attacking the British for independence. And that's how the basis of it all really started.
So tell me about Tom Sutton.
Well, Tom Sutton is a very strange character in a sense that he's a passionate man, and he's got a lot of experience in counterinsurgency because he's been fighting this war all the time. He knows how to blow up stuff. He knows how to escape away from it. And in the middle of all of this, he kind of loses a lot of his own passions because his best friends are dying around him, and he can't solve that problem. And then the worst experience happens to him with the do you know what a black and tan is?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, during the Irish Liberation War, the British soldiers did act like soldiers, by and large, but they brought in a group usually from British prisons or lowlifes, and they wore the British uniform, but they wore a black hat, and they were called the Black and Tans, and they were ruthless in a sense. They would murder, plunder, rape, do all the usual stuff. So my character, I have to weave that into it. Mm-hmm. That's how he loses his wife, because they attack her, rape her, shoot her, kill her. She kills a couple of them along the way, and the son is presumed to be dead as well. So I tried to make the first book not all about Ireland. I wanted to move it out because how many times can you say, he blew up a convoy of trucks? You can only do that once, and you got to move on, Or what was the character of the British officer he had to deal with. Was he a good guy? Was he a bad guy? Was he like the black and tans? No, he wasn't. So Tom Sutton became a very compassionate guy and a guy who could fight the fight, walk the walk, and still be a gentleman. And that's how it turned out.
Right.
Then, unfortunately for him, because he was wanted, and as you know, perhaps, maybe you don't, but perhaps most people in Ireland, if they want to leave the country, where the hell do you think they go? Think of this population of this country, Irish, they all want to go to America. So these people were ready to go. It was his last hurrah. And he was leaving the country because he knew eventually they're going to get him because he can't escape the armies forever. So he was destined to go to America when his wife was dead and lost, and then the ports were being watched. And the port at the time would have been a place they called Queenstown. This is all the British names in Ireland, but since it's changed its name to Cobh, but it used to be Queenstown. And they were watching for the guys leaving. So his best friend from the Revolution, who is with him at the very start and at the very last page of the book. I mean, it's kind of interesting how I wove that character together. His friend became his mentor, his guardian, his nurse, and whatever else, because he sinks so low that he doesn't know what to do. And this guy can't get him out of the country. He can't get him to America because he's going to be found. So he actually takes him into the bowels of the enemy, which is back into England, which he shouldn't have gone there, but he did, to Southampton. And he gets the first boat out of Southampton to go wherever it's going to go. It happens to be going to Cape Town in South Africa. So that's how it all gets to Africa.
What is what do you want people to take away from this book?
Firstly, I'd like them to take away the fact that it is kind of historically accurate. And when I say accurate, I mean the facts are the facts, that they can be checked, the dates, the times, whatever else. The facts about that, the facts about Africa are pretty accurate as well. But deep in the heart of this book, it's actually a love story. It's a truly love story. And he never really gets over the loss of his wife, period. And that's where he sinks into alcoholism. And he's rescued by a little girl who takes him out of that area by the virtue of the fact that he's an alcoholic. She offers to pour him his drinks and tells him she pours the drinks for her father. And he said, oh my God, this kid's father's an alcoholic, which is not the truth. I won't tell you why, but it'll come through in the book itself. So basically, it's a book that is laden with characters that he grew up with, that he loved, that he lost, and new ones that he finds. So it's kind of interesting.
Violence and revenge seem to be a constant undercurrent in the story. How do these themes impact Tom's actions and his relationships, and how do they influence his future decisions?
His future decision really was based upon the fact that he loses all his, I'm looking for the right words here, he uses all his violent aspect when he comes out of the alcoholism in South Africa, because he's found this little girl and the father actually is dying. So there's the storyline. That's the truth business of the alcohol. And the father concocts book 2. Father concocts a plan of how this man could adopt his daughter if he chose to. And because he was all along making connotations to the old man that, his daughter is kind of replacing the son he's lost. So by virtue of that statement, the old man could see them getting closer and closer together, and he was going to die, and he's going to leave his child in an orphanage, which he does. But he sets up a plan of how Tom can actually adopt her. And the moment he adopts her, his whole style and mode of life changes. Becomes the protector. He becomes the one who loves the child, the guy who doesn't want to have any more aggravation in his life. But he's now in the middle of Africa, but it'll find him. And like everything in life, it finds you.
It sounds like there's a lot of resilience in this book.
Oh, there is. Oh, there is.
How important is that in the weaving of this story and the message?
it's exceptionally important because, you know, I'm a great person who reads a lot of stuff myself, and I'm a terrible critic because I see mistakes that I thought were so stupid that should have never been done. More, I should do it more line in movies because I'm involved in that business. That is even worse for me when I say, "Oh my God, how did they get this through?" So my whole theme with Sutton was to make Sutton a compassionate man, a forgiving man, but a man who also had a very short fuse, because that fuse went back 20 years. You know what I mean? And that's the truth of it. So I tried to make it not all about him, because that would have been silly. I wanted to make it more or less about his friends too, and the character that he came from the Liberation War with him. And then I tried to weave into the fact that he meets this Black African guy. And to understand historically, the colonial Britain was not that compassionate to the Black population. And on top of that, they didn't, I think I had to put into the book that my character forms a relationship with this man who teaches him the African cultures that he can use as he moves down the line, and it serves him very, very well. And he treats him more like a friend. I mean, there's a certain segment in the book with a little girl chastises him for, why is he your friend? They're not your friend, they're your servants, you know, because she's got the South African attitude about it all. Mm-hmm. He educates her and makes her make a full circle as to her thought process when she meets up with a guy that now is his big friend, and who dies for him in the end of the book. So,
reflecting on Tom's journey, what do you think his ultimate legacy will be?
God, I wrote that down somewhere. Can I just look at a note I wrote on that? Because sure. I thought a legacy is an interesting thing. I had a simple think about it. Sorry,
no worries.
Up there.
Do you want?
Hope I can find it. Oh yeah. Okay, I'll read it to you as I put it, right? Because you're talking about the legacy that Tom leaves behind him, reflecting his journey. I think the overall theme of this trilogy is that a person can come from nothing to face every kind of adversity and continually rise above it against all the odds. And that's what I've got going on here. He is not ashamed from whence he came, and he did achieve the success he eventually secured for himself. Along the way, he deliberately never hurt anybody. I said deliberately never hurt anybody. And he believed that each day had a sunset and a sunrise. So that's his legacy is pretty good, you know?
Well, I think there's also a lot of, like, we talked about resilience, but there's hope.
Yes, plenty of hope. I mean, there's the hope is in the fact that I don't want to tell the whole story here, but part of the story is that he inherits a large chunk of land. Not he doesn't. His now daughter does, and it's basically the father had left a large chunk of land for the daughter and Tom, so they were partners. He locked them into each other. And in that piece of land, because it was absent so long while the father was sick in South Africa, something happens on that farm that concerns stolen gold. So I have to hide it somewhere, and it's hidden there by virtue of the antagonist, who we haven't even talked about. He's a bad news character, but it's hidden there. And the ultimate aim for this guy is to remove him from that property, which he can't remove him because he's now living there with what's his daughter. And to get his hands on the gold, he has to find some way to make Sutton move of his own accord. Exit or enter the story. Here's a kicker. Enter the story is the son he thought was killed. So the son survived. And the son actually was taken into the well-being of the British major who was hunting Sutton back in the liberation days. So now the son has grown up as a British person, but they find for some reason that Sutton is in Africa. He didn't know how, but it comes to life in the book. And he wants to hunt him down, and he wants to destroy him because he thought his father left him. And that's a poignant part of the whole situation, because now he's got a little girl who loves him. He's got a son who hates him, and all at the same time. And this little girl and it's difficult for a guy to talk like this, but you're a female, you get it. When you take somebody that starts off their adventure at 8 years old, and by the time you're nearly 3/4 way through the book, she's a young woman. And now I've got to write about a young woman, you know what I mean? But fortunately for me, I've got 2 daughters and four granddaughters, so I can see how they operate.
Absolutely. And there's 2 more books after this.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Absolutely. The second one is called The Dutchman's Plan, which is, I've covered a little bit of what that was, but you'll see how that comes to life. And of course, the last one is called The End of the Line. And the end of the line is really the end of the line.
Absolutely.
And all the way through this, it's great to appreciate it. The Museo Tunya, which is the Victoria Falls,
yes.
Museo Tunya is the title the Africans use it, features throughout the entire book. I bring it back and forward and take it in and take it out, because I think the reader needs to know something's going to happen here, that we need to know what this place is really all about. So I drive it home. I really drive it home.
Oh, we look forward to hearing more about the other books as well.
Oh, that'd be my pleasure.
Yes. Guy, thank you so much for chatting with us. It was a real pleasure.
Nancy, it was my pleasure indeed. I enjoyed it.
That concludes today's episode of the BrightWord Books Podcast. We hope you enjoyed exploring the Thundering Smoke, The Price of Freedom, and the journey of Tom Sutton. You can find the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble and learn more about the author at guyquigleybooks.com. That's guyquigleybooks.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and share your thoughts on this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time with more literary discoveries on BrightWord Books Podcast. Until next time.
You've been listening to the BrightWord Books Podcast, home of the literary community that celebrates creativity, inclusivity, and the transformative power of literature. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss future episodes. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.